architect of the September 11th terrorist attacks and his fellow defendants may never face the death penalty for orchestrating the worst terrorist attack on American soil. The Pentagon and the FBI are notifying families of those lost on 9/11 that a new plea agreement is under consideration between government prosecutors and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. The prosecution of Mohammed and 4 others has been troubled by repeated delays and legal challenges. Mohammed, the mastermind behind the attacks, was waterboarded by the CIA 183 times. Defense lawyers have argued that whatever he said during the torture is inadmissible. He and 4 others are awaiting a military trial at Guantanamo. The letters to the families of 9/11 victims said the government is now looking at a possible plea deal that would spare the terrorists from death. And for many of those family members, the idea of this is outrageous. NewsNation's Kellie Meyer is in Washington with more. And Kellie, the government says in these letters that no deal has yet been reached. What's the latest?
That's right, Elizabeth. Good evening. Well, that notice was made in a letter obtained by NewsNation sent to several of the 9/11 families. But for some of those families that we spoke with, a plea deal might not be justice served.
It leaves you really, really frustrated, really disenchanted.
A potential plea agreement for the suspected masterminds of the September 11th attacks. That was the message in a letter from the Pentagon recently sent to many family members of victims killed on 9/11. Kristen Breitweiser, a widow whose husband Ronald died in the South Tower of the World Trade Center, says the lack of a full prosecution is inconceivable to her.
My husband was murdered. 3,000 people were murdered in broad daylight. And to think that this government, my country, is not going to fully prosecute anyone for that, I just think it's a failure of this country.
Terry Strada, whose husband Tom died on 9/11, says she is fed up that no one is being held responsible.
Why doesn't this country, why doesn't this government stand up for the 9/11 community and put us first? With the anniversary coming up, I mean, we've deserved it year after year, but I don't know how much longer, how much more pain and suffering they think the 9/11 community can take.
The prosecution of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and 4 others held at Guantanamo Bay has faced repeated delays and legal disputes. One major sticking point, the legal fallout of the torture tactics used to interrogate the suspects while in CIA custody. As the 22nd anniversary of 9/11 approaches, no trial date for the 5 alleged perpetrators has been set. Today, NewsNation pressed the Pentagon on whether or not a plea agreement could serve as adequate justice for the suspected masterminds of a terror attack that killed nearly 3,000 people.
What message do you have for the families who have been waiting for nearly 22 years for their trials, and is justice being served?
Because the specific cases are ongoing, it would be really inappropriate for me to discuss it at this point. So any questions on that, I'd have to refer you to the Office of Military Commissions.
Now, Elizabeth, other family members have said they would insist that any plea agreement allow their lawyers to question the defendants on the extent of any Saudi official involvement in 9/11. Saudi Arabia denies involvement by senior Saudi officials.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.